I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 3rd, 2023 City of Windom Council meeting. This evening, we do have one item that was placed on your desk, Council, and I'd like your consideration to add this to the agenda. It has historically been a position that we don't add items to the agenda. However, I'll let the council make that decision in this case. So does the council wish to put that on the agenda?
I'd make the motion to add it to the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made by Marv, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? We are going to discuss this, though, when it gets to the on the pros and cons. So the council should be aware of that. Thank you. That item is added to the agenda. We voted, right? Okay, I'm sorry. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. That is added to the agenda. And I will bring up under new business, it'll be added to it, is gummies at the liquor store. And that may be, if the council approves, a future council agenda item. So with that, we have included in the packet that is under the consent agenda minutes of the September 9th and 26th council meetings, Park and Rec Commission September 13th, HRA September 19th, Telecom Commission September 25th, Utility Commission September 27th. Also included are the regular bills. Any action by the council?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
That motion by Scott, was that second by Jim? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry. Okay, department heads.
John Nelson, liquor store manager. I got two things to update the council on. One, if you haven't noticed, there's 3 construction vehicles parked behind the liquor store now. Sounds like they will start breaking ground either tomorrow or Thursday. They got delayed by the potential rain that was coming today. They didn't want to start digging and then run into a bunch of mud, so they decided to wait a day. Sounds like Friday they'll start with some ramp demolition in the back room to make room for the ramp between the current building and the new building. So that's why you see 2 pods sitting outside the liquor store. We're using that for storage of items to get it out of their way. As for the amount of room they need, takes up about 3/4 of our back room. So to give them much room as possible, we had to move some equipment and things like that out to the pods. So second item of business is yesterday we started the 16th annual MMBA annual food drive with Miller Lite. So we'll be collecting cash donations. Each dollar donated during this time will count as 3 pounds of food. Other than that, we're collecting any items that the Cotwood County Sharing Center can use. You can just drop it off at the store during regular business hours, and we'll take care of getting that down to the sharing center. The items that they're in need of are some personal care items, razors, juice, canned goods. Can't remember everything, but that's the majority of them. Box cereal. So we will be running that promotion through December 2nd. We will be competing with other municipal liquor stores in the state to try to collect the most pounds of food. The store that collects the most pounds of food will get an additional $1,000 donation to the local food shelf. So if you are cleaning out your cupboards or want to stop at the grocery store and buy a few extra things, feel free to drop them off and we'll collect them and we'll take care of it for them. So it's one of our community values to show the community value of the liquor store in town. So any questions on those items?
Any questions from the council? All right, thanks for the update, John.
Thank you.
Other department heads? Okay, we're going to move on to Windom Area Health Bond Issuance Resolution. Todd? John? Okay, this evening we are going to discuss the interaction of the committee that was assigned to this, and Todd's going to lead us through the discussion on the bond issuance, the resolution that was included and all the information in the packet. Todd?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, council members, for having me. Todd Hagan from Ellers and Associates, your municipal advisor for the bond financing here for the Windom Area Hospital. Got John here, of course, you know John, the CFO out there. We have been working hard to get this together because we're also being chased by demolition as well. So we're happy to do that. And so we have been talking. I think we had five banks sort of lined up at the beginning just to get a feel for this. Aside from USDA, we already kind of talked about that. We're just too fast for those guys, and so we had two drop out. One was because the hospital is too small for Huntington Bank, you know, the OTCF folks. The other one, Bell Bank out of Alexandria, their liquidity is getting awful tight out there, and so they're keeping sort of all of their loans in that local Alexandria area. So we had three that were still, you know, going with us on this quest. One was Bremer Bank, who I think originally financed the fire hall, if I remember, with that lease purchase. So they were really receptive to giving us a proposal. And even with all the, you know, the turmoil and the liquidity issues out there and the volatility, I guess is a better word, out into the market. And then your two local, Bank Midwest and United Prairie Bank, were kind enough to keep rolling with us as we went through all this. So again, if you remember, we just have been throwing data at these folks for a month, and with great debt ratios there to revenue ratios, so we're good there, and obviously plenty of cash at the hospital to be very flexible with everything. So that was very helpful to these banks. I know when I was here, I think it was August 15th, we kind of kicked this off with that pricing committee too, getting that approved. And we were thinking maybe we needed to cast a wider net just in case we weren't getting good enough results from these three banks as we went forward. We would have hired a placement agent, which is kind of like an underwriter, broker-dealer firm that would sort of go farther out to their customers. We weren't going to the public market like we did in 2014 with Northland Securities, just because of the time factor as well. But we would hire someone like that to move forward and cast a wider net. I did get, after we received the 3 proposals, I did ask a placement agent to see if we were in the ballpark, and we were. He had somebody in mind, and they dropped out. So it's a tough world out there. As a matter of fact, I was at the GFOA conference last week, Government Finance Officers Association up in Alexandria, up at Arrowwood, and that broker dealer actually talked to Huntington Bank, so they were on their list. He says, "I know all about the Windom Area Hospital. It was just too small for us to take on." So we did offer one last shot. Before we made the pricing committee call on the 28th, I think it was just last week, right? Where we had the mayor and Steve, city administrator, and John, the CFO, on just to sharpen their pencils, because United Prairie Bank was willing to take a look at that as well. So we thought we'd offer the other folks the opportunity to, again, to sharpen their pencil and see if they could lower their rate. United Prairie's was pretty low already, and they're looking for 2 more participants to go in on this bond issue. They will buy it, but they'll have a couple more banks to sort of spread it out with. Their rate's pretty low, and we'll get into that. Bremer came down, and so did Bank Midwest came down a little bit, but not as far as United Prairie. So, and United Prairie gave us a 10-year reset on the first option at the benchmark of the 10-year Treasury. I think that closed at 4.79% today. Went down a little bit, and then they also offered a 20-year fixed at a much higher rate, and with really no penalties whatsoever, no prepayment penalties. A drawdown concept that John really likes, that we don't get all the money at once, which I think is going to work great in this situation where that bank will hold on to it and we'll just make draws from it, so we're not accruing interest, in the interim. So that's going to save us a lot of money. Otherwise, we'd have to turn around and invest the proceeds and collateralize and all that kind of stuff that makes, then there's fees involved in that too, and things that complicate things a little bit. And yeah, we would probably have a pretty good hedge there, but the drawdown concept is really a cool thing to have. And so Bremer Banks was very complicated. The resets were complicated. They had some options in there that just were kind of over the top, I think. Dan Miller out there did a great job. I ran into him at the conference too, and so he's really happy to have participated. And whatever the outcome is, they're fine. And Bank Midwest, same sort of concept as United Prairie, but kind of shorter, I think, resets, if I remember, on that one. So United Prairie's was, again, the most flexible, and actually the less complicated. So they did have some origination fees attached to these as well, and so Bremer's was the highest at 0.25%. Bank Midwest came in second, highest at 0.2%. 20 basis points, in United Prairie was 15 basis points the lowest. So it just keeps kind of getting better and better for Jason at the bank there. So I think all 3 were fine. I really appreciate all the participation we got from all 3. Everybody hung in there and did their best. They're all sort of basing the benchmark rate at sort of the U.S. Treasury, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, or I think Bremer was looking at kind of, there's a sort of a benchmark. Des Moines has something too that's similar to the U.S. Treasury too. So United Prairie Bank is it's benchmarking off the 10-year U.S. Treasury, and so what they do is that's the funds that they get to loan out. So then they mark it up, or whatever for their profit, right? So that's where we get that interest rate from, and so the markup basically, or profit, I guess, is United Prairie's is the lowest at how we're calculating that they're at 1.15% over that benchmark to get to that 5.7%. That's still good today. So the higher the Treasury gets right now, the lower that gets. So we will be locking in at that 5.7. So the Treasury has gone up since the writing of these proposals. So that 1.15 is actually lower, and it will remain that way for 10 years, and it will be the benchmark formula for 10 years and beyond. So that's kind of a nice benefit. Bank Midwest ended up being about I think, if I'm looking at my notes correctly, they were higher markup on that. So I'm thinking that was 1.8 over, and then Bremer was they sharpened their pencil a little bit, but they were still in the twos over those benchmarks. So United Prairie is still, I think, just it's sort of a no-brainer on that they're coming in the best. Talked to Jason a little bit out there this morning too, again to see how things are and if this is indeed a strong commitment. I don't know if you look at the proposal, it says sort of this is not to be taken as a commitment. There's some bold language in there, but what he said is it's kind of typical, sort of like in the mortgage world, that we have to still dot our I's and cross our T's, and there's things to do between now and the closing. We're going to target November 2nd as the closing. So it's not that any of these terms are going to change. It's just that he's got to get this all settled with his other two participating banks, and there won't be any surprises. So that was making me a little bit nervous on that. Yep. And you're buzzing through that a little bit. Yep. So I do have the pre-sale report then. That's the background of this, if you want to pass it down. I know Steve's got it, obviously, on the monitor here. And so I do always come back, and not a pre-sale, the sale day report. I come back and kind of summarize, what we've got here for a bond issue. And pretty simple summary here. We did talk about most of this just now, or I did. So it's pretty easy reading as you go through just that first page beyond the cover. We know what the project is. United Prairie Bank, the pricing committee feels that that's the best option to go with. The interest rate is sort of the 10-year reset one we're choosing, because if rates go down, it's going to be an automatic refinance, and if rates go up, well, we'll maybe bundle it with the 2014 bond issue and go out into the market, next time or something. We've got more time to do that. It's certainly a possibility. Neither of those bond issues have any prepayment penalty. They're both callable at any time without penalty, so it's a pretty smooth deal, as we move forward. I kind of like that concept, and I know John does too. So we're going with the 5.7% 10-year reset option, if that's okay with everybody. I did run some numbers. They're in the back here. I haven't gotten those approved by United Prairie. It's a little up in the air as far as that's concerned, of what that might look like, but I needed to kind of show ourselves a little something. They're talking monthly payments. I think that's right in John's wheelhouse to pay that. It's hard to say when we're going to start to draw on this one, right? Because we've got cash, at the hospital. So, this might be the last thing to spend out of the chute, right? Just kind of keep it parked for a while and not accrue interest. So I'm thinking maybe March or something, it start sort of pulling from this one, or earlier is fine too. But we have to pick a date. Again, the amortization will be a little bit of a moving target until we sort of start drawing all the funds. We've got cost of issuance, and it's really just our firm and Freiberger Law Firm for that. And again, Jason at the bank is looking at a bank origination fee of 0.15%. And so we treated that origination fee as kind of a interest expense, not really as a cost of issuance. So that's sort of how we treat, right? When we sell a bond, well, the liquor store electric coming up, the next one, going to see a lot of you guys here coming up. Already have, no problem. And so that will have what we call an underwriter's discount on that. So we'll receive a bunch of bids from broker dealers like we normally do with that kind of a bond. And that's called an underwriter's discount. And so we treated this origination fee similar to that sort of underwriter's discount we see on a normal general obligation or a typical general obligation bond. So it takes like the interest rate and takes that net interest cost, just kind of pops it up a little bit, just because that's how we treat their fee. But you'll be paying the 5.7%. So we talked about the pricing committee meeting, all good. We say that was approved, but, we had to go with somebody, so we approved the United Prairie Bank proposal. Again, we're going to have a reserve on this. We have to. So U.S. Bank Trust Company is the trustee on the 2014 bonds, and they're going to be the trustee on these bonds. So we've got a reserve that's kind of accumulating both of them. And I know you guys, that was important to the council too, to have that sort of extra layer of protection before it, would ever reach the taxpayers. So that reserve is going to be there, and I think it's still at like 1.6 million ish, and that's coming from cash from the hospital. Yep, super flexible on the call date and that. Yeah, no lockout, no penalties, none of that kind of jazz. So we're liking that. And then November 2nd is the target closing date. I just asked bond counsel what would be a good date. I asked Jason at the bank what would be a good date, and we're just sort of nominally picking that right now. So not set in stone. I think we could close this pretty quick. But I want to give him time to talk to his two participating banks to get this sort of ironed out amongst themselves. And then tonight, we have a resolution that's prepared by bond counsel, Freiberger out of Duluth, your bond attorney. And so no rocket science to this. This just kind of sort of gets this all approved, right? We still have to go back, though, to the hospital board and get their concurrence and sort of ratification as well. So they'll have a little resolution to pass too, like they did last time. So you guys are first out of the chute to get this approved. It's your bond issue as far as being the issuer. And then there'll be a whole host of other documents coming. So Steve and the staff and the hospital will be having fun with that between now and November 2nd. So I think that is what I've got, and so we're looking for your consideration on this, and I'll yield for any questions. But if you so choose to approve this, we'll have you sign that proposal form to send back to the bank to get that rolling on their end. So.
Okay.
Sorry, John didn't have a chance to speak, but he's here for questions.
Go ahead,
too.
John.
No, he did a good job, Todd. Thank you. Just say I did a good job.
Are you okay? Are
Yep.
you okay with everything?
Yep.
Okay. A lot of information for the council to digest. I think, I'll speak on your behalf too, Steve. The pricing committee felt comfortable with this. The one question I will ask that I think is pertinent, is this a proposal comparable to what you estimated going in?
Well, since there's not really any comparables out there, we had talked about that before. We were all kind of shooting in the dark a little bit. We got some sort of indicators from Zion's Bank, but they're really not in the market for these types of bonds. Just the where sort of rates are going right now too, they're sort of going up. Even as we were been speaking, for a month and a half or so. I think this is fine. I mean, we picked 5.25. This is 5.7. It's not a whole lot different per month. What would we figure, $2,000 or something like that? So it's I think a good. It looks like a good deal. Yep.
Thank you, Todd. Council questions? Mark?
With that debt service coverage ratio of over 2 and additional invested reserve dollars that the hospital has, and now with the funded bond reserve, would you say that the statement still applies that the hospital would have to have many years of poor financial performance before Windom's taxpayers would ever be faced with any financial obligation?
That is absolutely the case. Yep.
I would like to add too to this. I like the mix of risk. We've got one bond out in the market, right, with many bondholders out there that we don't know who they are, and this one we know who these folks are here. And if there's any trouble coming, there's always room for amendments on this. I'm sure there's some flexibility. There's no guarantees, but it's really nice to have one that's able to do that. Just go down the street and kind of talk about it. So I'm happy with that. Just that mix of different types of purchasers that we have here. Never thought of that until I really got into this, about saying that's, I think, a real plus as well.
Thank you, Marv. A thing that I appreciated too is we had 2 local banks looking at this. I think that's a huge thing, and I appreciate both banks. United Prairie's came in and did their due diligence. I think that means something about the mindset here in our community. So I really appreciated both banks being interested in facilitating this document. So, other questions from the council? One more time, any questions from the council? Any comments from the council?
That November 2nd date, is that when they're gonna start demolition? Or is that just as far as the money's gonna be there?
The money would be there on that date. We're hoping for demolition yet this week, so there's another ask here after this.
Yeah, this has to be handled first prior to demolition to verify that we're moving forward with the financing. Jenny?
I would introduce the resolution on this bond issue.
I would second.
This resolution introduced by Jenny and seconded by Marv. I will ask for any final comments prior to the vote. Any final comments? Hearing none. Roll call.
Benson,
No.
Grunig,
Yes.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
No.
Quaid.
Yes.
And that resolution carries 3-2. I thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
John, you may want to, and Todd if you want to, but for our next agenda item, for the demo part of it.
Sure, yep, I can handle that.
Okay, because that resolution passed, we have a resolution, I believe. Nope, it is a motion. Okay. A resolution, recommendation is requesting the city council permission to proceed with the demolition of the medical clinic at 2170 Hospital Drive. That would have to be done to complete this project, of which the funding was just approved. Council wish to take action.
I would make the motion.
I would second.
Motion Jenny, seconded by Marv. Any discussion?
What would be the reason why we would not want them to go ahead?
Don't look at me, I don't have one.
I guess I would have felt much better if it would have been on a ballot where everyone could have voted. I would have felt a lot more comfortable. Myself, I think it's a great idea, but I think that there were a lot of people that didn't say what they really wanted to say.
That might be the case, Jim, but that's why we had a public hearing, and that opportunity was there for the public. And I do think that, proceeding is, with this, because of the vote on the financing, we all knew that that demo was going to come fairly soon afterwards. And it's part of the project that is now going to move forward. So, any other questions or comments? I appreciate that. And as far as the referendum, council and the mayor have been elected to make these difficult decisions. I understand, Jim, what you're saying, but I would say that a referendum on this would institute potential in the future also for additional referendums on any decision a council will make. And I don't think that's the place for that type of question. But I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. And I appreciate your comment, though, Jim. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? 4-1 as I heard it. And that carried. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, and this one shouldn't be much of a surprise in this, but we have great news that state appropriations are now at the doorstep. Tiffany Lamb is here, our EDA director, to explain what we need to do. There's a resolution for a deed grant agreement and then some loan documents that'll follow underneath this. So with that, I'm happy to say that the agreements are here, and I'll leave it up to Tiffany.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor. Tiffany Lamb, EDA Director. As the mayor stated, we finally have a grant contract agreement. We were required to actually apply for the special appropriation to the city, and as you are all aware, back on August 15th, the council had approved a resolution to move forward with that grant application. That has been accepted. We have received the actual grant contract agreement as facilitated by Deed's attorneys, and so this should be the final documentation, final step in the process of getting actual access to those state dollars. With that, there were some requirements that we had to meet to comply with state law, and I'll go through a couple of those just briefly. There was, as you might recall, the $10 million related to the housing development, completing the workforce housing. And for that, we found through the process that the language in the bill was not sufficiently retroactive, and so nothing prior to June 5th could be covered. There were expenses that the developers had for that development that were in the period of time between High Life's warn letter and the June 5th date. And so we did work with the developer and find a viable path forward with them taking additional debt on from their parent company. And so they did take additional debt of just shy of $2.5 million. So you'll see that listed as being for debt repayment. That is explicitly debt that was to take care of the existing work that has been completed prior to June 5th. And so that will take care of the many local subcontractors and statewide subcontractors that are currently unpaid for the project. And I think that that's huge. I've had multiple local subcontractors stop into my office and let me know how frustrated they are with this process, that there's unpaid debt. And so excited that we were able to find a path forward for that. There's an additional $2.8 million for the construction costs to complete the project. And so altogether, that'll add up to 5.3 when we, contingent on approval of this resolution, go through loan documents. You'll see that it's separated out into a 5.3 loan and then a $4.7 million loan. These first two pieces with the debt repayment and the construction cost are the first part. That's the part to get it completed, get all of the local guys paid. The last part is $4.7 million for a loan from the city to the housing developer. That's largely due to the fact that they were supposed to have a master lease with High Life that they ultimately obviously are not going to have. And so that's to get actual people in those buildings and be able to facilitate actual success of the building moving forward. So that's the three essential pieces in the grant contract agreement for that $10 million towards housing. We additionally have $2 million related to the wastewater treatment plant improvements. We did work with DEED to find a viable option for that, since, as I said, the language in the bill was not seen as being retroactive. And so we have worked with several state agencies to make a viable path forward for that. And so we're working with PFA to get that invoiced appropriately and be able to take care of that expense. And then $1 million related to recruitment efforts for the processing plant for premium Iowa pork. For that, we don't have explicit details yet, as they're still putting their plans together for what operations will look like at the plant. So we can't be entirely positive what that will be, but that will be focused on job creation and ensuring success of the company moving forward once they do start operations with that. Of the three different areas of the grant contract agreement, the three separate appropriation areas, the only one that will have to comply with business subsidy law is that last $1 million. For the wastewater and the housing appropriation, those do not have to comply with Business Subsidy Act law. One other piece in the resolution I just want to draw attention to that I'm sure you are all aware of, but there is no additional match required by the city. These are funds that are directly from the state appropriated by the legislature to the city. So there is no match, there is no requirement for the city to put any additional funds towards any of these project areas.
Very good. My comment, just to start any questions, it's not a question, it's a thank you to Tiffany and working with Steve to get this to where it is today. Because this has been a long, long project to get this done. So I know myself being involved in the need to know type items of it, but it was really set forth by these two here, and I really appreciate that. Questions from the council? Comments from the administrator?
No, thank you guys for all of your time and support on it. Thanks, Tiffany, for all her work on it. We did have a lot of discussion with Deed. We even had to see the governor and talk to the commissioners many, many times on this, but I'm glad we're finally to this point. And as Tiffany alluded to, a good chunk of these housing dollars are going to pay off some of the outstanding bills, and a lot of those are local contractors. That's an immediate impact, and over the long term, we'll get that housing completed. People will move in, which would be good for the community. And then as these loans get paid back, those dollars will be recycled within the city of Windom. So that is the long-term benefit, and that's huge for our community. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That repayment and that money stays in our community is huge. And you'll hear more about some of that in the next item as well. Okay. You have the resolution before you. Council wish to take action.
I would introduce a resolution authorizing acceptance of the special appropriation. And
I'll second.
That was a quick second, Jim. I appreciate
It's been
that.
a long time, and there'll be a lot of people happy for Christmas.
There you go. That resolution, introduced by Marv, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Thankfully, I will ask for the roll call.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Grunig,
yes,
Esplin, Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, next.
Okay, next action item is looking at loan documents for the housing piece of the special appropriation. I do want to highlight right off the bat that the recommendation is to approve these loan documents contingent on approval of a written modification of the contract for private redevelopment with Windom Apartments LLC. So Windom Apartments LLC has agreed to fully relinquish their tax increment financing. That total over the term is $983,000. And so that will now come directly into the levy immediately, full tax value. We do not have the actual amendments prepared at this time, so we are just asking to approve the documents contingent on that ultimate modification. And so anticipate having those at the next meeting.
What did you call that? That was a big word in there.
For the tax increment?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a TIF.
No, understand
or-
that, but there was a large word that I did not catch. Could you just briefly read that again?
Absolutely. So what we are recommending is an approval of the loan documents that you have before you, but making those contingent on approval of a written modification of the contract for private redevelopment. So that's just the TIF agreement, in which Windom Apartments LLC, in this amendment, will relinquish their rights to the tax increment. And they have agreed to do so.
That $983,000 that we have provided that project for TIF, that's gonna go to zero. So as you won't have that anymore, those are coming immediately on the tax roll, so that's not bad.
So that does immediately end up having impact for local Windom residents, having that tax valuation added in immediately rather than looking at it being several years out from the TIF. Were there any questions related to that?
Okay. Steve answered my question.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm not going to repeat it because it was probably a little bit ridiculous. So with that, did anybody write down that recommendation for the approval that Tiffany referenced? Could you state how you would like it worded?
Recommendation to approve the loan documents for Windom Apartments LLC contingent on a TIF development agreement amendment relinquishing the TIF.
I'll make a motion to that.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I will second.
All right. That was by Scott and seconded by Jenny. Any discussion?
Do they have any idea when it's going to be completed?
So it is anticipated to still be completed by the end of the year. And so I can go over just brief details on that as well because they're...
Let's get the motion first and then
Okay.
you can follow.
Absolutely.
Final questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now please continue.
Okay. Thank you, by the way, for that. What I just wanted to make sure that we did cover with that. We do have a requirement in here for an appraisal of the property. That will be completed prior to the $4.7 million of permanent financing being released. We do have a written expectation of all funds being released prior to the end of the year, with completion, including certificates of occupancy, having been achieved by the end of the year to actually be able to meet the requirements of the loan documents. And so there will be an appraisal selected by the city, paid for by the developer, just to make sure of the value of the property on that second piece of the money. The first piece will not be contingent on the appraisal, and a lot of that's because it gets the buildings completed as well as, like I said, paying the outstanding bills to the subcontractors. Ultimately, there will be a second mortgage on the property, including the full $10 million of the both loan pieces. But initially, there will be two separate promissory notes, with the first having a springing lien, where if there was any condition of default, including not actually achieving those certificates of occupancy, then they would automatically default into a second mortgage position without any intercreditor agreement, without any additional work on the part of the city. We do additionally, with that first part of the financing, have a security agreement. That's what they're calling a negative equity pledge. Essentially, we have been pledged all of the equity that they have in the project, with the requirement they cannot pool their own equity. And so they're required to keep their roughly $2.6 million in equity that they have in the project and if they were to default, we would have access to that $2.6 million, as well as having a corporate guarantee by their parent company. And so we did do significant amount of groundwork just to make sure that we've covered our bases and secured this as sufficiently as possible, while also being respectful of the fact that we want our guys paid as quickly as we can, and we want to be able to see the apartments actually getting completed and people being able to benefit from them.
Is any of the apartments going to be handicap accessible?
That I can't speak to. Actually, yes, I can. I do not know the amount of the handicap accessible units. I actually did have the opportunity to tour the buildings last week, and the general contractor did state that in the handicap accessible units that the bathrooms are larger, that there's a larger storage space as well. And so I know that there are handicap accessible units, but I do not know the amount.
Any questions? Mark?
I would just like to note Tiffany's effort in getting up to speed in all of this. Welcome to your new job, oh, by the way. High Life closed, and there's 1,000 employees at work. And Tiffany has a new job. And all of this is complicated to me, so thank you, Tiffany, for doing an excellent, excellent job.
Thank you.
Is there any other action needed tonight? One thing I'll say is all these documents that have been prepared by staff have been run through the city attorney. And so I think we're good to go. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5, we have a resolution accepting a donation from Judith Heinz to the library. Amount of $400, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make the motion to accept the donation.
I'll second that.
Resolution introduced by Scott, seconded by Dennis. Any questions? I'll ask for a roll call.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Grunig.
Yes.
That resolution carries. Thank you. Next is a liquor store fundraiser. We have a transfer to the fire department general fund. Pretty straightforward. This is the event that John had at liquor store.
Yes, so this was one of our community involvement fundraisers that we did on through the year, just like the food drive starting up now. So this event ran August 1st to September 11th. Back on July 18th, I brought the idea to the city council of donating a portion of sales to the fire department rather than reducing the price of the product. When I came to the council, the estimated donation based off 2022 sales was about $144 and change. So using the same calculations, running the sales data from August 1st to September 11th, that value of the donation based on the table that we used amounted to $607.50. So there was a large increase in Coors and Coors Banquet sales over last year. With that, in the packet, I believe, is the breakdown of sales as well. So with that, it is recommended to approve the transfer of $607.50 to the fire department general fund that would be used to offset equipment purchases such as the grants that were received in the past year. So,
Is there a motion to make the transfer?
I'll make a motion to transfer the money to the fireman's relief.
general fund.
To the general fund, sorry.
I will second.
Motion by Scott, seconded by Jenny to make the transfer. Any discussion?
I just want to thank John for doing that for the fire department on the general fund too, and just keep up the good work. Thank you.
With that, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Just a note, as the other part of the fundraiser that we did was the pallet raffle with them. Latest I heard, all 1,000 tickets were sold out. We were sold out by the end of September. The drawing is on the 14th of October, so someone will get lucky, win a pallet of beer. So
What kind was that?
you can take Coors Light or Coors Banquet, 104 cases of beer, or they can take the gift card to the liquor store of the value of $2,184.
Okay, I just making sure it wasn't a good beer. Okay. Thank you, John. Okay, with that, this is, we got a couple of these resolutions calling for public hearings. The first one is the 2023 special assessments. That list has been placed in your packet, and will also, we need to call for the public hearing.
I'd make the motion to call for a public hearing on the 2023 miscellaneous special assessments.
I'll second.
Resolution introduced by Marv, second by Jim. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Quaid,
Yes.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Grunig,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
The next one may not be too familiar to everyone. I think I'll ask Steve if you could do just a quick introduction of that prior to the resolution calling for a public hearing.
Sure. Tiffany's here, but I can do it quick. So our Small Cities Development Program, that's the housing rehab program that we've been operating since 2018. We're close to the end of that grant, and so to close it out, one of the requirements is that we hold a public hearing on the closeout of that grant. It's perfunctory action, but we need to do it, so we're requesting that the council set a public hearing to close out the 2018 SCDP program grant.
Thank you. Council action to introduce.
I'll introduce the resolution.
I'd second.
A resolution regarding the closeout of the SCDP grant made by Dennis, second by Marv. Any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call.
Grunig,
Yes.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
And that resolution carries as well. Okay, under, let me see, we're under the personnel. Let's go with the community center on-call. Riley Raverty being the candidate that we're going to hear about. Tim?
Tim Snyder, Community Center Director. Bringing an action item for you to recommend the approval of hiring Riley Raverty for an on-call part-time position at $12.50 an hour. Our on-call, one of our other ones, is gone off to college, so he's unavailable to it, so we're just kind of replacing that position.
Council action or questions?
I'll make a motion to approve Riley Raverty.
I'll second it.
Motion Jenny, second by Scott, to approve that hiring for on-call position to Riley Raverty. Hearing no questions, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, under, let me see, we did that under personnel. We added the finance controller director. And this is kind of a big item that we have to deal with. I mentioned that I'm not in favor of it to act on it tonight, but I understand the importance. First of all, once again, the council want to consider this. I'm getting the, okay, nods. It looks like we have about unanimous consent, which I will note. And therefore, I will, let me see, leave that up to Steve or Jenny or Marv. Personnel committee.
Yeah. Overview it, or want me to?
Okay, there we go. Steve,
All right.
Steve
I'll
volunteered
do
by
it- I'll do
Jenny.
it quick. Okay, so we had, Cheryl announced her retirement a number of months ago. We put a advertisement out. We got some applications in. Just with vacations and schedules, it was kind of tough to get everybody together, but we did do that. We did a first round of applications, of interviews, and from that, there was a couple of candidates that merited some additional discussion. And so that kind of occurred over the next week or so. In the meantime, we did get a couple of other applications, which I did share with the members of the committee to take a look at. The feeling was to continue down the path with one of the applicants that we'd interviewed in the first round. And so Personnel Committee being Councilmember Quaid, Councilmember Gruening sat it out, Mayor Jones and Tom Reardon, with the consensus, directed me to get a hold of Kim Armstrong. Kim was finance director out at the Windom Area Health for 19 years. She's now working with the foundation and the auxiliary. Kim has got a lot of experience in accounting and has a degree in it. And so I contacted her on Monday, and she let me know late Monday afternoon she would be taking the position. So I brought it up to you to add to the agenda if you so chose, and that is the action that's on your docket tonight. The memo you have explains what I just talked about, and the backside of the memo has the salary terms that we had worked out, which is essentially step 8 or step 7 going to step 8 in our supervisory pay plan for the finance director position. So nothing out of the ordinary other than those items.
So I will just comment, of the interviews, our candidate that, 2 out of 3 of us were in agreement to select, did just outstandingly well in the interview. Just, the spoken and knowledge presented in the interview far outweighed the other 2 that we interviewed. And so that's what we looked at basing our recommendation for hire, was on that and the history and experience that this candidate brought. And so myself and former Mayor Reardon, that's on the Personnel Committee, both were in agreement that we should pursue with this hire.
Thank you, Jenny. Was that a motion to then, Jenny?
Yes, then I would make a motion to hire Kim Armstrong.
I'll second it.
Okay, now any questions? Anybody would like to ask about this?
As far as
Yep.
starting and
Yep, Cheryl,
it's saying pretty much the
pretty close. Yep,
cost,
yep.
not a whole lot of difference.
Not a lot of difference. And when we had looked ahead into the 24 budget projections, when we were doing our estimates, we didn't know what this position was going to be. So we estimated actually a little higher than this, so we will still be within budget on that.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome aboard, Kim Armstrong. With that, we go to contractor payments. The council has 3 of them to consider tonight. First one, Des Moines Force Main Crossing. This was done by Hodgman Drainage Company. The payment number 1 is in the amount of $183, $422.20. Did we anything particular, Ryan?
Just in case you guys had any questions on it, but no,
Yep.
it went great, less than 2 weeks start to finish.
Okay.
Looks better than it did when we started.
Start to finish was 2 weeks. Ryan gave us the nod of approval. Council wish to take action then.
I'll make a motion to accept the payment.
There'll be one final after this. Okay, that motion by Scott, seconded by Jim. Any further discussion? Or anybody want Ryan to come up to the table? Hearing that isn't going to happen, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for the willingness, though, to come out. Truck Garage, Wilcon Construction Services. This will be payment number 4, $31,806.95. And I do not believe there's any. Steve, you do have a comment.
No, just that I'd be pinch hitting for Jason tonight. He had another commitment. If you have any questions, I can certainly do my best to answer them. As the mayor stated, this is pay request number 4. Project is still progressing well. We're still hoping that they are going to maybe be able to wrap up everything pretty much by the end of the month. There might be a little interior work, HVAC to do, but if it's good enough where we can get our equipment in at night, get it out during the day so they can finish that, that will then precipitate us starting on the next phase, which is the generation building and taking down the current, the old truck shed. So with this payment, we're just over half of the project cost expended.
Of that 31,000, anything significant you want to mention to? What any
No,
of this
there's 2 change orders that were approved at the last council meeting are included.
Oh, thank you. Council action?
I'd make the motion to approve invoice number 4 to Wilcon Construction.
I'll second it.
Motion Marv, seconded by Scott to make that payment. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Transmission line reconstruction, IES Commercial Incorporated, payment number 2. This is in the amount of $1,390,669.41. That's a little bit bigger number. Steve, would you like to tackle this one as well for Jason?
Sure. You've probably noticed that the poles are set and most of the line is strung across that. They've made very good progress. They were delayed, as Jason pointed out, the last meeting by the railroad crossing. That got pushed back to, I think, October 9th. It was supposed to be done the 2nd, but it's now pushed back to the 9th. That's pretty much about the only thing remaining to be done. Once that's done, it can get tied in, and then we will switch our feed back to the normal transmission feed, and project will be pretty much completed other than some minor cleanup and things like that that the contractors are going to do. So this one as well, we expect to be done by the end of the month. So be wrapped up and out of here. It went quite well from what I understand from the engineer and our staff, so.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve? Hearing none, council action.
I'll make a motion to make the payment number 2 to IE contractors.
I would second.
Motion, Scott, to approve that payment, and seconded by Marv. Any discussion?
It's been the best show in town all year.
It has been. A lot of comments from the public, and I think it's incredible they do. Marv probably enjoyed that the most. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, new business. I'm really not asking for any discussion on this tonight, other than the concurrence that we can place the gummies at the liquor store on the agenda for the next meeting. I would like to actually send that to the committee, which includes Scott and Jenny, to review, and also to review past discussion by the city council. It was my understanding gummies were not going to be in the liquor store, and I'd like that to be reviewed and just brought back, and the council can take action as they see fit upon that discovery items by the committee. So, okay, that can just be a consensus. And any other new business? Steve, did you have anything else? Okay. You got it all on the agenda. All except Yep. Any old business? Council comments? Who would like to start? Jim?
I have nothing at all.
Okay, Marv?
I just want to thank the water department and the electric department for the installation of the water hydrant in Loman Park. When I come back after being gone 2 weeks, first thing I did, went down there and seen that sticking on the ground. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Marv. Jenny?
I don't have anything tonight.
Scott?
Just with the vote of the hospital and stuff like that, we all have tough jobs to take care here at this council, and whether you're for it or against it, it's done now. So we'll take it in our hands and make the best thing forward with it, and everybody still come together, and it's still our city, and we can do what we can for it, but it's what we need to do and what we will do. That's all I say. Thank you.
Very good comment. Thank you. Dennis?
I have nothing.
Steve?
Attended county board today. One of the items on county board was we have a local road improvement grant. The state put some dollars into that fund with their surplus monies last year. As you may recall, in 2020, we applied for a local road improvement grant to do a reconstruct on 10th Street, essentially from US Highway 6071 down 10th Street, down River Road to where it intersects with County Road 13. So that whole segment. So I had the engineer rerun the numbers on that, and it's about a $5.6 million project. It's just getting more expensive. However, there are dollars in this local road improvement program. Last time we were 2 projects away from being funded. So we thought it might be another opportunity to apply again on that. So we are going to apply for that. We're planning on that if, the council will support that. I mean, we have the decision point. If it's awarded, you can always say yes or no on that. But we need to get an application in the window. So the county needed to support it. Since we're a town under 5,000, the county board has to support the project as well. They supported it this morning. So, so that is kind of underway. The amount of money the state would put in is $1.5 million towards that project. So some of it would be water, some would be wastewater, some of it can be the state money. So it's not as huge of hit to the, our street project, but we were planning a 24th Street project, that was one of them that was on that list, yes. So we thought if we can get some other dollars, maybe help leverage, our local dollars, that would be beneficial. It's due in September.
And
We wouldn't know until a couple of months later. So it'd probably be closer to a 20, it'd probably be, probably know about the first. It might be a 24, 25. By the time you get through all the processes that you need to get through, several months of design, it's probably a end of 24, start of 25 project. So you have plenty of time to consider it once we find out if it's going to get funded or not. So.
And will you just put that on the agenda?
There will be. You will have an agenda item coming up for a resolution of support and signing off on it as well, because it does require a local match, and will be a council decision. But I wanted to let you know, since it was on county board this morning, moving it forward. So that's kind of the first step in it, and then you guys have the next step.
It is always nice to hear that, what Steve does prior to it coming out in the paper. So, sorry, Steve. I really don't have anything tonight, and I thank the council for all their consideration of making tough decisions. These are tough. I understand it. And so everybody did their job. Okay? So with that, thank you, and we're adjourned by unanimous consent.